The US-brokered peace plan for Gaza has now progressed into its second phase, according to a statement by President Donald Trump's envoy. Trump's special envoy for the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, made the announcement through a post on the social media platform X on January 14th. Witkoff said that the peace initiative is transitioning from an initial ceasefire arrangement to a broader second phase focusing on demilitarization, governance reforms, and the reconstruction of Gaza's infrastructure. He also issued a warning directed at Hamas, warning of serious consequences if the group refused to comply with the disarmament terms laid out in the plan. Witkoff wrote, quote, "Today, on behalf of President Trump, we are announcing the launch of Phase 2 of the President's 20-point plan to end the Gaza conflict, moving from ceasefire to demilitarization, technocratic governance, and reconstruction. Phase 2 establishes a transitional technocratic Palestinian administration in Gaza, the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, NCAG, and begins the full demilitarization and reconstruction of Gaza, primarily the disarmament of all unauthorized personnel. The US expects Hamas to comply fully with its obligations, including the immediate return of the final deceased hostage. Failure to do so will bring serious consequences. Importantly, Phase 1 delivered historic humanitarian aid, maintained the ceasefire, returned all living hostages and the remains of 27 of the 28 deceased hostages. We are deeply grateful to Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar for their indispensable mediation efforts that made all progress to date possible." Unquote. US officials, quoted by the Times of Israel, said Hamas had conveyed signals suggesting its willingness to lay down arms as part of the proposed peace framework. One senior US official added that Washington would coordinate discussions with Israel on what form of amnesty or legal compromise could be extended to members of Hamas who agree to disarm. According to details of the American proposal, all forms of terrorist infrastructure present within Gaza will be systematically dismantled as part of the demilitarization effort. The plan also involves the removal of large-scale weaponry such as rocket launchers, missiles, and RPG, which are to be transferred out of the territory under supervision. However, the documents released so far do not mention the inclusion of small or light weapons in the disarmament process, a key issue that Israel insists must be addressed. Israeli officials maintain that Hamas relies heavily on assault rifles, particularly AK-47s, to enforce its authority and control over residents in the Gaza Strip. Meanwhile, regional powers including Qatar, Turkey, and Egypt expressed approval for the creation of a new Palestinian technocratic governing body to oversee administration in Gaza. The key ceasefire mediators announced that this provisional body would be chaired by Palestinian economist Ali Abdel Hamid Shath. However, the exact composition and internal structure of the provisional technocratic body remain unclear at this stage. Washington's 20-point peace proposal also calls for the establishment of a new entity known as the Board of Peace, which would be chaired personally by Donald Trump. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu stated last week that former UN Middle East envoy Nikolai Mladenov had been selected to lead the board. Netanyahu also said that the board would be responsible for coordinating and supervising the activities of the Palestinian technocratic government once it assumes administrative control in Gaza. The US plan further includes provisions for deploying an international stabilization force within Gaza to ensure security and support the demilitarization process. The implementation of this second phase is unfolding amid a sharp escalation of regional tensions and growing hostilities throughout the Middle East. Tehran issued warnings to US partners in the region, stating that it would target American military bases located on their soil if direct conflict with US breaks out. According to Iranian state media, the head of Iran's Supreme National Security Council recently held a conversation with Qatar's foreign minister to convey this message. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi also spoke separately with his Emirati and Turkish counterparts to discuss the rising crisis, according to local reports. During these exchanges, Tehran urged its regional neighbors and US allies to help prevent Washington from taking any military action against Iran, as reported by state outlets. The United States maintains a substantial regional military presence, including the headquarters of its Navy's Fifth Fleet based in Bahrain. Nearby, Qatar continues to host the Al Udeid Air Base, which serves as the forward headquarters for the US Central Command operations across the Middle East. These diplomatic moves came as Iran intensified accusations that alleged agents linked to the US and Israel were fueling ongoing unrest and protests within its borders. Since protests erupted in December, Iran and the United States have been exchanging escalating threats that have raised concerns about a potential military confrontation. US President Trump has repeatedly warned that he would order strikes on Iran if it proceeds with the execution of detained protesters. Independent reports estimate that more than 2,500 people have been killed in Iran's ongoing demonstrations since December 28. The protests were initially driven by public outrage over runaway inflation and the sharp depreciation of the Iranian rial against the US dollar.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the U.S. will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Deep dive into burning issues.
It's often said DRC could be the richest country in the whole world. It's because of what sits underneath.
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.